Alright, today I want to talk about Veins of the Earth, which is done by Patrick Stewart and Scrap Princess, the same team that brought us Deep Carbon Observatory. And this is an amazingly thick book. It's really well made. It's published by Lamentations of the Flame Princess. So you open it and there's an encounter chart. This is a book about the Underdark. And once you've read this book, the Underdark will never be the same to you again. When I first encountered this, I saw it on Drive-Thru RPG, and I downloaded it. And it was just before bedtime, but I stayed up for hours reading this. It was like a religious experience. It has a totally different take on the Underdark than you've ever seen before. So I highly recommend this. This is probably the second most favorite Lamentations book of mine after the first 2 pages of the spell books. So it starts with a bunch of really unique monsters. The pages are like almost cardstock. They're so hard. There's a bunch of unique monsters, all drawn by Scrap Princess. The Anti-Phoenix. There's mentions of the Anti-Phoenix in Deep Carbon Observatory. Arachnopolis Rex. A bunch of spiders that form into a city. The Archaeans. Atomic bees. Blackfoot gigaferret. Calcinated cancer bear. When I've been a player, for some reason, a lot of DMs like this monster a lot because I keep running into it. But when I'm running it, I have never yet run this. So many of these other monsters were so much better. So there's like 50 different monsters here, all drawn by Scrap Princess. Let's get through that. And I put markers so I can go back to them when I'm running it. Okay. So those are all monsters, one monster, but there's also this section of cultures in the veins, like the Alpha Doll, which is a variation of Drow. And it doesn't give you stat blocks for these on how to run them. You have to make it up yourself. The Deep Janine are like genies of the ultra deep. The Darrows are like insane dwarves into conspiracy theories. And I use the playtest rules from Eldritch Cock as my rules about how to run a Darrows, with a few other additions to make them more insane. Dvargir are like the deep dwarves. The substraddles. Now, they live deep, deep in the earth. They're earth elementals, and whenever a magic user casts Conjure Earth Elemental, what they're getting is the substraddles who live on the edge. What they're getting is insane criminals. That's what you get when you encounter elementals on the earth that you conjured, but they have a whole civilization down there. The non-men, they're like gnome, halfling, underdark creatures that are good, so you can make friends with them. But yeah, the heart of the book is this whole thing about darkness. This is a book about the darkness and light, about how improvision doesn't work. My house rule about this was that elves, there are 12 levels of darkness. Elves can see in up to level 2, dwarves to level 3, but anything darker than that, then you need a light source. Normal modules don't go deeper than level 1 darkness, but it goes up to 12 levels of darkness. And the Lume is a measurement of money. You trade things, their value is in Luma. A Luma is equal to 1 silver piece in money. It's also the amount of light that you can generate in an hour. So something that generates light for 1 hour is worth 1 Luma. If it can generate 15 hours of light, it's worth 15 Luma. So it's also a measurement of distance. How much light does it take to get to there? Also, lamps are initiative. The range of the light, how far it shines, that's your initiative. So if it shines 30 feet, you have an initiative of 30. Whoever holds the lamp gets to decide what the initiative of the group of people who are sharing that light is. So they could decide that since I'm holding the lamp, I go first, or they could designate somebody else goes first. What order do you go? If you don't have a lamp, you get an automatic surprise attack against somebody who does have a lamp. And there's like 20 different kinds of lamps. I do house rule how much these lamps cost, though. Also, there's a random roll about what happens if you get lost in the dark. It has its own character sheet, which has some flaws, but for the most part, I prefer it over the regular Lamentations character sheet. Encumbrance is a big deal in the Underdark because you only have what you carry with you, and so you want to pare down things as much as you can. So, however, your constitution, your strength, your dexterity, your intelligence, your wisdom, all of these can add to the amount that you can carry, but after you've maxed out on everything that you can safely carry, each other item penalizes you more heavily than normal for Lamentations. There's a table for random exploring, and climbing. There's special rules for climbing. If you study your route, you can increase your chances of being able to climb. Also, what you're climbing up makes a big difference. That abseiling, that's going up or down, going down a rope, you can automatically do if you can see the entire route, but if not, it's still pretty easy to climb down a rope. Slope is just a pretty easy to climb. Not as easy as abseiling, but still easy. Hard climb is what the normal climbing chances are trying to simulate. Very hard is climbing an overhang, so that's even harder than a hard climb. Hanging upside down the ceiling is the most that humans could do, and then going down a slope upside down head first is even harder. So there are rules about what happens if you fail different kinds of climbs. Armor is not so useful in the veins because it increases your chances to go get hypothermia. There's a really good system for generating cave systems. Just rolling a couple of dice and a mapping system that makes it easier to map the cave systems that you're going through. And there's a random cave generator, so you don't just make a round cave. They can have all different shapes. Also, there's the large-scale map for when you're mapping long distances. It's this weird thing to simulate 3D in that this corner and this corner are top-down maps, And these are side maps. So there are different kinds of passages that you can make. There's like rivers, and the red is to represent a fault line. Let's see. So you can make different kinds. There's mine systems. That's what the brown represents there. Yeah, rivers, faults, mines. War works. If two underground factions have been at war, they'll make a series of tunnels that are sometimes connected and sometimes not. Sulfur blooms can make these interesting things. There are fungi that carve gigantic passages. And there's gigastructures like cities and the tunnels that go with them. And burrows that gargantuan creatures carve. There's an encounter chart. More encounters. And a bunch of random caves. Interesting caves here. There's a creature called the Civilipede, which is a giant centipede-like monster, like a train that runs through the veins, and on its back is an art museum. So there's a bunch of works of art that are on top of the Civilipede. And there's some unique spells that go with the Underdark. Things like Heat Ghosts makes basically an image that shows up on infravision. Speak with air. Silent speech. Stone steps. Vampire Council calls up a vampire who represents you in court. Food is in great shortage here. So if you do feign death, then you're likely to get eaten. But the spell Worthless Corpse makes it look like you're dead and you're not worth eating. Madness is a thing. Food is supposed to be a big shortage, but I found this hard to run because any monster that the players came across, they would try to eat. But this Veins Effects was a big favorite. If you're down here too long, there's a variety of things. The most common one being Fighting the Rapture can cause you to have to roll on this chart. And some of these, if you roll it more than once, it becomes doubly true. It becomes stronger. The Rapture, which was back in the monsters, is a monster of madness that is stalking you constantly, and periodically you have to fight it. Hypothermia is an issue down here. And in the appendix, it talks about the 12 kinds of darkness. There's a faction called the Knotsmen, so it's got their languages. It shows you how to make a cave system. And there's an index and a new character sheet and some definitions. So this is one of the best role-playing books I've ever seen. It's a real shame that it's printed dull on flat paper, because when you look at the cover, you can see that if this had been printed on glossy paper, it really would have made Scrap Princess art pop out more. But there's way too much blackness in here to print it out yourself. You should just go ahead and get the book, because it's got a lot of black in it. But it's really good.